I don't know what my life will be like. I expected him to die in prison. I expected him to be 82 years old when he get out of prison. I expect out of all of the robberies combined for him to get to 65 years, which he tied up everybody execution style. And he is an absolute monster. He's a monster. And for him to be in prison for a certain amount of time and escape prison and take over a guard and steal an ambulance and then call Angola because he's in fear of his life at home is no excuse.
And we just heard from one of this man's victims. You see, this man, all those years ago, he wouldn't just rob people, but he would tie them up, unload his revolver, put one round in the revolver, spin the cylinder, put the weapon to their head, and pull the trigger. He was known for doing this. Now, she is standing up there and pleading with the parole board not to release this man that absolutely altered her life. Now, to add a twist to this case, this man also had a successful escape attempt. He escaped his prison by stealing an ambulance, leaving, and then in an interesting twist, actually called the Angola warden and said, I want to go to Angola because I'm in fear for my life where I am here at Hunt Correctional. Now, we'll cover all of this in more detail at the end. The reason that we're covering these escape hearings now is because of the Louisiana jail escape that is going on. So we thought that we would cover all sorts of hearings that involve someone who had escaped and see how that affects them in their parole ambition. But for now, let's jump in.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes,
you
sir.
are third felony offender. Your current offenses are 2 counts armed robbery, and you will be out as an habitual offender. You were sentenced in Orleans Parish and on count 2 on November 30th, 1993, on count 3 on February 9th, 1994. You were sentenced on count 2 to 15 years at hard labor. Count 3, 50 years at hard labor to run consecutively to count 2. So your total sentence is 65 years?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Your parole date was March 7th, 2019. And you're not, one second. This states you're not eligible for good time, but you now have a good time date of August 26, 2049, and a full term date of August 19th, 2058. Are those dates correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Your case has been assigned to Mr. Wise. Mr. Wise.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Roche, and thank each and every one who appeared here today. I was looking over your case, your offender class, you're a third class offender, but I see that you have some credits there, and probably you had some more credits until they moved everything up. You've got 385 days of credits there that I see that I commend you on. One of the things I'm asking, what is your job at the prison there now? What do you do? Are you a trustee?
Reentry mentor.
How long have you been a trustee in trustee status?
I don't have a trustee. Just a reentry mentor.
Okay. Where are you housed at right now?
Camp C, Wolf Folk.
Camp C.
Yes, sir.
What classes are you taking right now?
I have completed all the classes back there that are given, and my job is to mentor to reentry inmates and mentees.
Right. You know, I see you came before the board on 3/15/19, and you was removed from your status because you was not eligible for parole consideration back then. And then you back up before us today. How long you been incarcerated?
27 years, 9 months and 14 days.
When was your last disciplinary write-up?
December the 17th, 2017.
What was the disciplinary for the record?
Yeah, 22.
How many disciplinary write-ups you got all together?
A total of 31.
You got 31 write-ups, yeah. And before the one that you, in 13, you got that write-up. You kept yourself pretty clean on the disciplinary write-ups, I see. If you were to get released, where would you live?
I would go to a parole project first, and then I will move in with my fiance in Baton Rouge at 12757 Coursey Boulevard.
Yes. One of the things I want to ask you, and I want you to say this directly to the board, is anything you had to say to the victims, what would you say?
I would tell her that I'm sorry. Victim awareness taught me a lot. And I understand that victims go through a lifetime of pain. And I'm truly sorry for what I did.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Mrs. Renazi.
So, Mr. Kelly, I don't have any particular questions, but and reading in your record the letter from the Mississippi DOC Commissioner, Warden Kane, who you know, and he speaks of your escape from Hunt in 2012.
Yes, ma'am.
He indicates you were fearful for your life, I guess. But he does say he supports your application for parole unless you violated anything in the last 3 years. So I guess you've met that criteria, haven't you?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Renazi. Let me first of all go to the members of his family, Mr. Lois Kelly, his mother. Would you please unmute your mic? Good morning, Mr.
Yes,
Lois.
good morning. Good morning. My name is Ella Kelly, and I'm Joshua's mother.
Good. Tell us
And
what
I would like to say that, sir.
Just tell us, give us your statement.
Yes, I would like to say that I love my son very much, and I miss him, and I would like for him to come home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lois. And let's go to Mr. Kerry Meyer, the Deputy Director of the Louisiana Parole Project.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Roche. Kerry Myers, Louisiana Parole Project. We're here to represent and support Mr. Kelly in his bid for parole. Mr. Kelly has an extraordinarily good record of programming. Not only has he taken, all the required, but beyond that of programming, victim awareness, thinking for a change, living in balance, anger management, substance abuse. He has 2 VOTEC certifications in plumbing and HVAC. Obviously, Mr. Kelly was, his path has been about achievement during the vast majority of his incarceration. Most of his write-ups of the 30 that he had came in his early days of his incarceration, and that shows a sense of maturity. I will say this: I think this is probably one of the most unique cases that may come here in a while. Particularly, let's talk. The elephant in the room is the escape, and that Chairman Renassa addressed that briefly. But I think about this as I've going over and speaking with Mr. Kelly and going over the details. I mean, there's a certain I don't even want to call it. I don't even know how to describe it. He was fearful for his life, and he immediately stopped when he felt like his safety was assured and phoned the warden to come get him. His intention was not to escape. His intention was to save his life. And the fact that what he did after that, he immediately phoned and said, "Please come get me." And I think shows just tremendous character to a man who did what he thought he had to do at the moment, and then recognize that, and I also have to take responsibility for this action. And I think that's extraordinary. It just doesn't seem, you don't see that every day. Combined with his record of achievement, his programming, his accomplishments, he has a strong reentry plan with Parole Project. We will work with Mr. Kelly as long as we need to through his transition. And I would just ask this board to recognize Mr. Kelly as a mature man, as a mature individual, and after 27 years of incarceration. And we would certainly be happy to have Mr. Kelly in our program.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. Retired Judge Raymond Bigelow. Judge Bigelow, let me state this first. We do have your letter. Thank you so much for communicating with us prior to this hearing. I have read the letter. All the members of the panel read the letter, and we have taken it in consideration. But give us your statement.
Yes, Chairman, thank you very much for allowing me to speak today. I was an assistant DA for 11 years with Harry Connick's office. I got elected to be a criminal court judge, and I sat for 15 years as a criminal court judge. I've since retired, and I've been doing some criminal defense and sitting as an ad hoc judge. As a judge, we were sometimes, a lot of times, forced to sentence people to much more severe sentences than I feel they should have received. Even as a retired DA, I felt as a judge the sentencing was too long. I thought Orleans Parish, based on the multiple bill statute, being used the way it was being used up until the most recent election for DA in Orleans Parish, I think had been overcrowding Angola and other state prisons. I think that Mr. Kelly received a sentence, I think it's much more severe. He should have received, as you noticed, I initially gave him a 15-year sentence, or was forced to give him a 50-year sentence when the multiple bill was filed. I'm in favor of Mr. Kelly being granted parole. I've reviewed his accomplishments that he's done since he's been an inmate, and I think he should be released back into society to be with his family and his fiance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Judge Bigelow. At this point, I also like to say that we have received a letter from the Orleans Parish District Attorney's Office advocating the early release of Mr. Kelly. At this time, with the, and I'm trying to get the name, Miss, which one of you would like to speak? Would you please unmute your mic? Good morning. Good morning, Ms. Fisher.
Good morning. Thank you. We both are going to speak.
Okay.
I just want everybody to really understand that it wasn't just an armed robbery. I understand the plea deal he took, and I understand what happened there. But when he came into this business, I was there by myself. I was in my late teens. He was very abusive, very violent. 4 occasions told me he was going to kill me. And one occasion when there was a video camera that was up on top of the shelf where the video was, because it was in a video store, got punched in the head by him. The shelf thrown to the ground. I'm crawling away from where he's at, and he literally picked me up by my hair off the ground, dumped out all the bullets on the counter because he had a revolver, put a bullet in the revolver, spun it around, and told me that I was going to eat a bullet and use profanity as well. And the gun did not go off. Took my purse, got everything out of there that he needed to, and he knew exactly where the money was, in the bathroom, in a safe. Had the gun to my head at that point, loaded up another bullet, spun it around, pulled the trigger. On top of being hit with I got hit with the gun by him. He was, like I said, very abusive. There was blood all over the place. And at that point, knowing my father is a retired police officer, so I'm very aware of my surroundings and knew at that point that I needed to do something. So I literally pushed him out of that bathroom, locked the door, and got in between the cabinet and the floor, where he proceeded to bang on the door and try to get in that door. Waited a few minutes while I was in there. He made me believe that he left the business, which he did not. Stormed at the door again. Waited a little bit longer. I had to take a chance to go lock the front door and hit the panic button. And there was a gentleman that was sitting. Joshua Kelly was gone from the area from what I could see, but there was a gentleman sitting on the car under the street light on Morrison Boulevard, pointing a gun at the store, waiting for me to run across the field to go to Tony's Meat Market. So I was trapped in the building waiting. And this wasn't something that he just came in, took the money. He wanted change. I wouldn't give him change. He ordered a Snickers bar. It was $192 in the register. I'll never forget anything about the day. And you can see I have no paper in front of me. I live with this every day. I've been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. I've been treated with my physician. My physician has sent a letter to the board that I would have liked read, and he may be incarcerated, but I'm a prisoner in my own home, and it doesn't stop. If he's out of prison, I don't know what my life will be like. I expected him to die in prison. I expected him to be 82 years old when he get out of prison. I expect out of all of the robberies combined for him to get to 65 years, which he tied up everybody execution style, talked in his watch, everybody. He did the same thing with Russian roulette with every single victim. I just happened to be there by myself and had to fight myself. And I really need him to stay where he's at. I have no quality of life now. My quality of life now is very paranoid. I'm able to, I've done my concealed carry class in case I ever have to confront him. I don't know if he is going to come my way because no other victims come forward. It's only me. But it's that important, even though my doctor doesn't want me to do this, because it is going to affect me in a serious way. I have to, because it's that important. And he is an absolute monster. He's a monster. And for him to be in prison for a certain amount of time and escape prison and take over a guard and steal an ambulance and then call Angola because he's in fear of his life at home is no excuse. I'm not doing these things. I'm just trying to get by in life. So for me,
would you wrap it up?
Not acceptable. What did you say? I'm sorry.
Would you wrap it up, please?
Oh, okay, sure. Okay. I need him to stay where he's at. And that's where I need him to be, is where he belongs, in a cage. That's the bottom line for me.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Kutcher?
Yes, sir, I'm coming.
Just give us your name and your relationship to this case.
And Chris, I am the husband.
Would you give us your statement?
Sure. You know, we've been married now for almost 18 years. And for a while, there was never an understanding on certain behaviors that she would do. And when I say that, being scared. And then finally, everything came out, and I was able to learn my wife can't even go into a gas station by herself because of the fears that she has. You know, I'm an avid gun collector. I can't own a revolver because we went to the shooting range one day, and as I was loading it and spinning it, she had a complete flashback and had a breakdown. She is going to multiple doctors, and to, you know, do this, I understand plea deals, I understand all this, but as she stated, this wasn't a robbery. This was more than a robbery. He took a plea for robbery. And, you know, records state everything. And I'm just asking the board to please consider all this. Please look at the records and, you know, let that be with your determination. So I thank all of y'all.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you having input today. And Ms. Counselor, how would you like to proceed from here? Would you like to make a statement, or would you like your client to make a statement first and then you close?
Would like to give the opportunity to Mr. Kelly to make a statement, and then I'll say something very briefly afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Kelly, would you like to make a brief closing statement?
Yes, sir. In 2010, in the first victim awareness class of Angola, I had a chance to meet with a young lady named Kayla Smith, who had been shot while attending a 4th of July celebration on the levee in Baton Rouge. And I talked to her one-on-one. She was paralyzed from the neck down. And she told me what she had suffered with. She suffered with fear, nightmares. And as she was telling me this here, I was thinking about the victim of my crime, Miss Sylvia, Miss Brown, and how she was on the stand saying that she had nightmares and she couldn't stand to be around a lot of people. And that had really touched me. And I was like, I wish I could have then told her that I was sorry for the pain that I caused her family, her friends, and her. I learned a lot through victim awareness about what people suffer with, a lifetime of injury. I am truly sorry for the crime that I committed. And I would like to ask her someday would she be able to accept my apology.
Thank you, sir. Counselor?
Thank you. Thank you, board members, for allowing Mr. Kelly to appear today, and all of these folks to speak on his behalf. And I understand, you know, well, I don't understand. Ms. Fisher, I don't know what it's like, what you went through. I never had that happen to me. And I think it's incredibly brave of you to show up today. I can tell you that Josh Kelly was hoping he would show up today because he's really been wanting to tell you he's sorry. And he's also been wanting to hear how this affected you. And I know from lots and lots of communications with him, but also because I work with victims and survivors, that he is really sorry. There's not anything he can do to change what he did. And I can totally see how he was a monster at that time to you. But I can tell you now that he is no monster. He is not that person that he was at 19 years old, because he has worked really hard in the last 28 years to try to improve himself and change his behaviors. He was operating from a very bad place at that time. He was not using his best skills. He was not his best self, right? In any way. That's an understatement. And yet, that's what he's tried to do, is he has tried from the very beginning, he was incarcerated, to develop skills to not cause harm anymore to other people. Harm repeats, right? We see that all the time in our society. He's learned this in his victim awareness class. He works with other inmates now, right? Other people incarcerated, and he sees it all the time. When one person is harmed, they turn around and harm somebody else. And oftentimes it's not even intentional. And what I've been really struck by with him, and I think it's evident in his record, is that he has not only worked really hard to improve himself so that he's changing his behaviors, but he's worked hard to gain skills so that he can help other people. For years, he has been writing to young people in high schools and in juvenile detention centers who are around the age that he was when he caused you harm, and trying to tell them about what he did and encourage them not to do the things that he did, not to engage in the kind of choices that he did, not to sell drugs like he did because he was in a tough spot, not to do those things, figure out different ways. And he's been reaching out to his own family members, his younger family members who wrote letters of support, in his application, saying that they have really benefited from the mentorship that he has offered him over the years. All he can do is change himself, because that's what he has control over. He can't change what he's done. He wished he could. I guarantee you that. I wish he could. Board members, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, for giving all of us this opportunity. And I would just ask that, based on his record, based on the letters that you've gotten from former Warden Kane, from the DA here in New Orleans, and all of his friends and family, that you please give him an opportunity to go home and to prove himself, prove that he's going to continue on the path that he's already been on, that he's going to continue helping people, and he will.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
We appreciate your comments. Is the panel ready to vote?
Mr. Roche, could we hear from the warden at Angola?
Please. Warden Martinier, do you have any comments, observations, or remarks?
I can tell you, y'all pretty much covered everything as far as his disciplinary. He hadn't had a write-up, like you said, in about the last 3.5 years. He has come out of, he was in, because of the escape, in CCR, and he was given a chance to get out and has taken full benefit of it. And since that time has been moved up to, I know Mr. Webb was asking about his trustee, but he's been moved up to medium security. And because of the escape, that takes time. But since then, Joshua has taken, since COVID, we had to put the 2 dorms together, and has become a mentor and has taken over the program there and helping teach these MRT, the drug guys that we have come from parish prisons and from local jails, and they go through a program, and he's been mentoring to them for the last year or so, and has done really good at that. At this time, he's definitely headed in the right direction.
Thank you, Warden. Is the panel ready to vote?
Yes.
Mr. Wise.
At this time, this has been a very serious case here, but in 28 years, he's not the same guy that he was. Today, I'm going to be voting based on the letter from Judge Bigelow, also the Orleans Parish District Attorney's Office, and remarks from the warden, and also ex-warden Burl Kane, that they probably know him better than anybody here because he's been under their custody and with them. And he has a low tiger and good transition plan with the Parole project. And he's got family support. His mother is there. And I'm saying this, there's no contact with the victims at any time. I want that to be a special condition, no contact. But today, my vote is to grant based on those factors.
Any conditions, Mr. Wise, other than no contact?
That he goes to the Parole project and he's to take AA meetings 2 times a week, and he can do them online if he has to, and report monthly report to his parole officer, and they'll give him all the conditions that they have, unless whatever special conditions you want to set on, Mr. Roche.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Ms. Renaza?
I concur with Mr. Wise. My vote today is to grant his parole based on the favorable remarks of the warden, his age and length of incarceration, his support from the former warden of Angola. And he has a good transition plan. He's a low risk with the same special conditions that Mr. Wise mentioned.
Thank you, Ms. Renaza. Mr. Kelly, you have received 2 votes to grant your request this morning. Based upon no opposition from the sentencing judge, a low-risk assessment, excellent programs, and other things that were articulated by the other 2 members of the panel, my vote is to grant your request. After release, you'll have a curfew from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. You are to attend NAAA meetings twice a week. When you report to your parole officer, you will get the other conditions. But one condition I want to emphasize and re-emphasize again is that you are to have no contact with the victim or the victim's family. You should not be in the space of the victim or victim family at any time. And I always like to use the example. If you're in the Walmart store, at the checkout counter, in the process of checking out your goods, and the victim appears in that space, you are to immediately leave your items and walk out the store. You should not be in the space that's occupied by the victim or her family at any time. Do we have understanding?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Kelly, you have received 3 votes to grant your request this morning. Your request for early release has been granted. You have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Warden Marnier,
Yes, sir.
that concludes our business at Louisiana State Penitentiary. Time of adjournment is 10:06 a.m. You have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
You have a good day.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me rage about this case for a little bit. I need to get a lot off my chest, and I have to start by saying that Mr. Roche actually broke my heart. And for those of you who have been watching these hearings long enough, who feel that Mr. O'Shea has always been a pillar for the victims, this really broke my heart. Not only did he show no empathy towards the victim, but he actually said, wrap it up, and then said, wrap it up again. I don't understand it. There was not even an excuse of he could have let her talk forever. This was the last hearing of the day. It was actually a short day. It was like a couple hours. I think there were only 2 hearings. It's just strange. And I know everyone can have a bad day. This isn't going to change my opinion on how I feel about Mr. O'Shea, but I did feel betrayed. And I think many of you might be feeling the same way. For those of you who aren't familiar, Mr. O'Shea is the designated victims advocate in Louisiana Parole Board, which is a beautiful thing that Louisiana sets a designated victims advocate. We cover many other states, and they don't. No other states has a designated person to be the victims advocate. So it is Mr. O'Shea's job. It's his responsibility to have empathy for the victim and to, of course, not use the words wrap it up. I mean, to his credit, we've seen him perform in hundreds of hearings. We've never heard him use those words before. That's why we're so shocked. Maybe it's a Louisiana thing that they say wrap it up, and it's not taken as, it's not as harsh as I've always assumed it to be when Mr. Renatza says it or Jim Wise says it, but I don't know. But I had to get that off my chest. Then, regardless, imagine being the victim who is clearly traumatized, and it doesn't end here. It doesn't end here. I have an update on this case for you. In 2024, just a year ago from the time of this recording, and 3 years after he was paroled, an ADA got his sentence completely eliminated. So he's not even on parole anymore. And he did it without her knowledge. And she went and fought back. Give her credit. She is a warrior. She is fighting because she has been a victim not only of this really monster, but a victim of the system. How can you have it that you show up to a parole hearing? The sentencing judge shows up and says, my hands were tied. I would have only sentenced him 15 years for this. Release him. The ADA, the two-faced ADA, writes a letter and says, we support his release. Then you have the Parole Project. You have the attorney. The attorney, don't get me on the attorney. She goes on this monologue talking to the victim, telling the victim what to feel, telling the victim that she should forgive him, telling the victim how she should feel and think and get over it. How dare you talk to the victim? I've never seen anything like this. His attorney even used the words, he talks to youth. He talks to youth and tells them not to sell drugs like him if you're in a tough spot. Think, listen to those words. If you're in a tough spot. This kid was not selling drugs because he was in a tough spot. He was robbing people and taking pleasure in seeing their suffering. He was torturing them. Taking a revolver and emptying it and loading a bullet and spinning it and putting it to your head, that is something that you cannot get over. And lady, do not tell the victim to get over it. It's hard to imagine being in a room. I would feel like I was being bullied, tormented. You want to make the argument that he's been locked up for so long, he never killed anyone, he served his time, he's done everything he needs to do, except he has an escape in his jacket from just before the date of this hearing. It was just 10 years ago, an escape, which, by the way, he sued. He sued the state of Louisiana, saying he didn't even want the escape to be in his jacket. And that settlement, that lawsuit was only settled 12 months before the date of this parole hearing. So it doesn't sound like someone taking accountability to me. I've never seen someone who actually is an aggravated escape. I think we can read it if you want. We bum rushed the ambulance driver, stole the ambulance, and I get it. Again, I guess he did call up the warden right after. He wasn't trying to escape. He was genuinely in fear for his life. I do believe that. But you telling me that's the only way to do it? I don't know. But anyways, like I said, even if you think he should have gotten out, and had there not been a victim there protesting in the way that she was, I would have said, okay, I respect the judge for showing up. I respect the ADA for writing in. We need to see that more often in our system, where you can have humility, where you can accept it. It would have been completely different. But when you have the victim there alone, without even Mr. O'Shea, the victim advocate, to show empathy, and you have her being talked down to by, it seemed like, everyone in the room, the attorney, and she has no one there for her, I just have something wrong with that. That's just not the way it's supposed to play out. You know, it was also interesting. He gave a speech at the end where he, a prepared speech, right? At the end, where his attorneys would have helped him do it. And he talked about another victim who was paralyzed in the shooting, which, by the way, Miss Stapleton has mentioned that same victim several times. If you remember it, it was a Mardi Gras Day shooting. A woman and a man were shot. I think it was the same event. Both were like super athletes, and one became a quadriplegic, and the other lost the use of their legs. And and it was always brought up as like, oh, two people were injured. That's what you hear in the news. It's like, yeah. Well, how do you define injury? Anything that's other than dead. But he brings up a prepared speech. And what stuck out for me is that he was asked the same question by Jim Wise at the beginning of the hearing. And he said, don't say it to the victim, say it to me. What would you tell the victim? And he said, I would tell the victim I'm sorry. Victim awareness taught me that a lot, that victims can go through a lifetime of pain, and I'm sorry for what I did. That was his unprepared speech. There was no empathy in it. There was no emotion. There was no awareness. It was like, he just, this is what it is. Then when he had his speech, he had a prepared speech, which you can't give. It's like you see two sides of people. Anyways, the proper thing to do in that situation, if you're saying, well, what should he do? It would be like, what I did was all like disgusting. I put a bullet in the chamber. I spun it. I terrorized her. I lose sleep over thinking about that. One day I hope she will forgive me. How about maybe just one day I hope she can find peace? You don't deserve forgiveness. You don't deserve to ask her for forgiveness. You're always putting pressure on the victim. The victim's the bad one now. The victim's a Karen. The victim needs to get over it. This is the type of stuff that messes up. You could be a trained combatant. You can be an elite soldier. You hear about this stuff in books if you read it long enough. It's psychological torture would be to take you out into the field and do a mock execution. And the most grizzled veterans don't recover from mock executions. There's a reason why they have mock executions. It destroys you. And when she was just a teenager, she had to process that. And as you can clearly see, she is still struggling with it. Now, let me show you the link of what just happened a year ago, how she was betrayed again by the system. And I don't have an update otherwise. I want to check, is he still out of prison? But not only is he still out of prison, but again, like I said, they expunged his record basically. They not expunged it, but they reduced it. They said because he was found not guilty, he was found guilty by a non-unanimous jury, where it's gone. Now he's not even on parole. He has no conditions. So she was victimized again. Let me play that.
The victim of a violent armed robbery says she feels blindsided and sold out after the man convicted of the crime has his sentence greatly reduced, and no one told her it was happening. Now, this situation is now prompting calls for lawmakers to make the consequences more harsh if a prosecutor fails to inform a victim about a major change to their case.
Here's WDSU investigator Travers Mackle with our report, Victimized by the System.
This story starts here in New Orleans East back in 1993. A series of violent armed robberies, a teen girl, one of the victims. And it ends here in 2024, 31 years later, at criminal court in New Orleans, leaving the victim disgusted.
And I think it was intentional that it was rushed and I was not contacted.
The victim, who we are not identifying given the nature of the crimes, says she was never told that an assistant DA in Orleans Parish District Attorney Jason Williams' office went into court last spring and had the perpetrator's sentence reduced by almost 40 years.
It's absolutely crippling because I need to figure out how to get past this.
Which has been hard for over 3 decades. So let's go back to how everything happened. The crimes went down near Reed and Morrison on a cold November night in 1993. Court records show that a man named Joshua Kelly was arrested, charged, and in November of 93, convicted and sentenced to 65 years behind bars.
It wasn't a typical armed robbery. He was pretty aggressive. And from my understanding, he was that way with each and every robbery.
At one time, she thought she'd be killed.
He emptied the bullets out and played Russian roulette, emptied them out on the counter. It was a low setting counter, emptied the bullets out, put the one bullet in the chamber, spun it around and put it to my head. And when the gun did not go off, he just laughed.
The victim spent years following Kelly through the system. And when he came up for parole in 2021, she opposed it. But it was granted with stipulations. Kelly would remain on active probation until 2058 and had to stay away from the victims. Protections in place.
And he had to follow these guidelines. If he crossed the line in any way, I would still have a voice.
Kelly was convicted in a non-unanimous verdict. Non-unanimous jury verdicts were outlawed in the state back in 2018. When Jason Williams was elected as district attorney in 2020, he created a civil rights division led by the former head of the Innocence Project, Emily Maw. That unit worked to seek post-conviction relief for people convicted by juries that were not unanimous. Post-conviction relief typically entails ending or reducing jail time. Kelly is one of those people. So court records show that in May of last year, his sentence was reduced from 65 years down to just over 27. So Kelly was removed from active probation. The victim only found out months later when she did her usual check on the suspect, the man who once held a gun to her head. So she went to the DA's office to get answers and talked with the assistant DA who handled the case.
He immediately apologized and took full responsibility. He stated that he wasn't aware of that he did not do his due diligence, and that he needs to keep better records as far as the checklist, as far as what he needs to do, because he realized that he really dropped the ball on this one.
But the assistant DA may have also violated state law. This one, requiring victims be notified of any sentencing change.
District attorney has a duty to notify the victims of crimes once they're signed up and have joined the system, which my client has in this situation. It was known, the DA knew they needed to do it, and they simply just didn't open the file, find the phone number, and call her.
Kevin Janusa represents the victim in this case. He says the law also has no consequences if victims aren't notified.
They know that this law doesn't have any teeth to it because no one can enforce the law that gives victims the right to be notified. There should be recourse. Now, I'll leave it up to legislators to decide exactly what that should be.
Some lawmakers say it's something they might look at during this year's session. Kelly's resentencing happened just weeks before a new law went on the books on August 1st, 2024, essentially eliminating post-conviction relief or the reduction of sentences. Lawmakers accused Williams of rushing many hearings through the system before the law took effect, and he's appeared at a Senate hearing to defend his actions. The legislature continues to investigate this matter.
Not only were they rushing these resentencings through right before the law change, but they weren't notifying the victims, and that causes additional pain.
Metairie-based State Rep Debbie Villio, the chair of the Criminal Justice Committee, telling WDSU Investigates, basic rights of victims appear to be trampled on in favor of criminals and violent criminals at that.
I feel that they rushed this to have this done before that law went into effect.
State Representative Debbie Villio says the legislature will have more hearings on this matter of post-conviction relief coming up over the next several months. Back to you.
And the DA's office did not respond to numerous requests for comment on this story. Attorney General Liz Murrell tells us, quote, I am continuing to conduct a very in-depth review of a large body of cases. There are at least 35 cases that involve first-degree or second-degree murder where I believe that relief was improperly granted. I'm looking at mechanisms to have those convictions reinstated.
Okay. And you saw it. And can you make it up? No. You think anything will be done? I doubt it. And I don't even buy it how they said, oh, well, the DA said that he had no idea. He should have been more thorough. The ADA, the word worked out, did it without him knowing. And I don't buy it. It's just my opinion. I'm only speculating. I have no idea, but I don't buy it. We have seen these, DAs are like politicians, they're manipulative. And it's really a broken system. The DAs are motivated not by doing what's right. They're motivated by what makes them look good. They're motivated by what will get them reelected or what will get them to their next political ambitious goal. What do I mean by that? Well, you see it all the time. They will go after someone tooth and nail, whether they're innocent or guilty, they don't care. But as long as it will get attention in the media. They'll go after, right? They want to also, what they do is, why are so many sex cases not prosecuted? Why are there so many plea deals for chomos, for roaches? And what they will tell you is they will say the victims, we don't want to put the victims through the stress of a trial. We don't want, it's too much for them. So we'll give the chomo that did this to them for a decade, we'll give them like 3-year sentence. There can be video footage, there can be DNA, there can be everything to put the person away for life. He could have 20 victims going on for a decade, but that's what they'll tell you. And, maybe there's a few cases like that if I sat down with the DA and the victim, I would get it. I would say, okay, all right, you're in a tough spot. I get it. This is a tough spot. I'm happy I'm on your shoes. But there are a lot of cases that are not that way. There are a lot of cases where the DA is still, they are just too lazy. Even in those cases, it can still be messy. You don't know with a jury trial. And then the victim might get cold feet and not want to testify. And there's a lot of unknowns and no one wants to cover it. The media doesn't care. And their success rate is not going to be as high. So instead of having a 100% rate of of prosecuting to sentencing, batting, 100 for 100, 1,000%, right? No, then they might lose 10% of their cases. Now they're a 90% success rate. And then the opposing DA, when they come up for election, will say, I'm at 100% on all my cases, and your opposition, he's lost 10% of his cases. And the sheeple who we are, including myself, will go and say, wow, yeah, he's not a very good DA. He loses 10% of his cases. But this guy, look at what he did. He's all over the news, and he wins 100%. You get my point. You get my drift. They don't. It's not caring about the victims. It's caring about their records. Caring about their resume. Wow. All right. let's go over, because again, remember this segment is about those who escape prison with the whole jail, the whole thing about what's going on in Louisiana now with the inmates being escaped. At the time of this recording, 5 have been captured, 5 are still at large. By the time you watch this, who knows what it will be. But Louisiana has a long list of records of those who have escaped. As you can see, the spreadsheet here. And look at this, Sir Richard's on the spreadsheet. Sir Richard himself is worked. See him? That's him right here. That means he's on. So Lady Holly and Sir Richard, of course, are the spreadsheet masters. And what we have here is Lady Holly put all this together. All of this, these are the inmates that escaped. These are the ones that were caught. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These 5 are missing still. And then Lady Holly puts all the info here. And you can see what they're out for. Like, this dude has 3 escapes in his record. This guy has five bodies in his record. So if you can even believe that, he's been charged, I believe it is, with killing 5 people. 1 he was acquitted on. Yeah, jury found him not guilty. And there are 4 other bodies that I think are, I'm not sure. I have to look at it. But you see how Lady Holly puts what files here. And then all of these records are for inmates that have escaped and have come up for parole. And this isn't all of them. These are just some of them. So I have a lot to show you. And let's go look at this ambulance escape thing. Because remember how he escaped. So I'm curious about this. Inmate serving 65 years still in ambulance. Prison officials say that inmate Joshua Kelly escaped Elon Hunt Correctional Center after overpowering a guard who's also an EMT at the prison. So that makes it aggravated right there. Officials say Kelly then stole a prison ambulance and took off out of the prison. Law enforcement teams were able to track the inmate as he started making calls from a cell phone that was stolen in the ambulance. Angola warden Vern Kane said he was surprised when the inmate was patched through to him at home. So he escapes Hunt Correctional and calls the Angola warden. Isn't that strange? Again, who wants to go into Angola? I thought it was the warden calling me, and come to find out, it was the inmate, Kane said. Kane said that the inmate was determined to turn himself into Angola prison, saying he wanted to serve out his time there rather than Hunt Correctional. Warden Kane contacted Louisiana Secretary of Corrections, and the two headed to Baton Rouge, Gabriel area to try and assist law enforcement as they look for the inmate. Warden Kane said the escapee eventually called him back, and Secretary LeBlanc got on the phone, convinced and instructed the inmate to surrender to police. What I thought was funny here, you have the Secretary of Corrections himself instructing an inmate on exactly how to surrender. It is crazy. He got all the top brass. When I got to the corner of 73 and 75, I saw the ambulance coming. Said St. Gabriel Police Chief Kevin Ambu. I put my lights on him. He stuck his hands out the window and surrendered. He said, "Just don't hurt me," and stuck his hands out and said that he was on the phone with the warden. No serious injuries. But what happened? What happened after that? Did they say okay? So Sir Richard did bring the appeal. Remember, this appeal was only just decided. Let's see what's in the appeal here. You know, I get it that he was, you have to assume he is in fear for his life, right? Like, but one makes you wonder, were there really no ways else he could, I mean, I don't know. These consolidated matters concern 2 separate disciplinary reports dated 28th, the disciplinary rule aggravated escape, and the report, aggravated escape, by the way, if you're curious, Louisiana legislation, the maximum you can get for aggravated escape is 10 years. Not to run concurrent with their current sentence. An incident that occurred December 17, 2012, an employee took by force at Elon Hunt Correction Center. Here we go. Without permission and used the ambulance to escape Hunt facility where he was housed. At the time, Kelly was apprehended 3 hours later. He couldn't even get himself a burger. Following a series of 5 hearings before the disciplinary, I mean, I think I would do, once I got the ambulance, I'd be like, I'm going to go get a burger. Kelly was found guilty and sentenced to both charges, disciplinary, food. I mean, I get something in my favorite fast food. The only defense offered was denial of contents reports. Officer's version of incident was determined to be more credible than Kelly's version. The disciplinary board also denied all but one of Kelly's multiple written motions regarding various ways he has violated his constitutional rights. Okay. He lost 12 weeks of canteen phone privileges in order to pay restitution. The aggravated escape charge. The disciplinary board sentenced Kelly to custody change to maximum extended lockdown at Louisiana State Penitentiary. So here's an interesting thing. For escaping, he lost 12 weeks of canteen and phone. He had to pay restitution, and then he got maximum security, but he did go to Angola. Louisiana State Penitentiary is Angola. So he got what he wanted. Kelly appealed, so he didn't get 10 years. So they are nice to him. They don't give him a 1 year more in his sentence, and he appeals. What? Come on, guys. That's crazy. He got a gift. He got what he wanted, and he appealed. I don't know. This is just so messed up to me. He appealed the disciplinary board's decision in 2 separate appeals on the aggravated escape violation, on theft violation. He alleged he was denied due process in all stages. I mean, you literally stole a freaking ambulance. The board initially denied both of Kelly's appeals. However, when Kelly appealed to the secretary, how is he? Again, remember, this was only just settled a year before his parole hearing. Imposed an order to pay $3,000 restitution, which is what it costs, that makes sense. I mean, they would have probably put all the police, they probably put a helicopter up there. I mean, at least 3,000, you would think. Kelly then filed 2 different petitions for judicial review. Upon service, DPSC answered both petitions. Recommended district court uphold the disciplinary board's findings of guilty in both charges. This is weird, man. Why would you appeal this and fight this up until 8 years after? For this stated reasons, we find the record clearly supports the district court's judge. It's such a ridiculous appeal. Am I the only one that's shocked by this? Oh, look, December 30th, 2020. He had his parole hearing on 2021. All right. There's a lot of craziness. I don't know. There's a lot of craziness if you ask me. What do you think? Share your thoughts. And with that, I'll let you go.
I don't know what my life will be like. I expected him to die in prison. I expected him to be 82 years old when he get out of prison. I expect out of all of the robberies combined for him to get to 65 years, which he tied up everybody execution style. And he is an absolute monster. He's a monster. And for him to be in prison for a certain amount of time and escape prison and take over a guard and steal an ambulance and then call Angola because he's in fear of his life at home is no excuse.